This video is on amending the Constitution, and this information is found in Article 5 of the Constitution. An amendment is just a change to the original U.S. Constitution. We're going to learn later that there were two sides, those who were for the new Constitution, those who were against it, and one of the reasons some of them were against it was because they wanted some basic rights guaranteed that were not actually put in writing into the Constitution. So instead of opening up this document to be changed, they said, let's just make some additions and changes after we go ahead and ratify the original document. So the Articles of Confederation, which was the document that was the guidelines of how we operated after the Revolutionary War, it required all 13 states to vote in favor of a change to the document. So you know that there were 13 original colonies, there were 13 original states, and so in order to make any changes to this document, it required a unanimous vote, which never happened. So there were never, the articles were never amended because you had 13 different diverse states who had different interests. You had the North and South, so you had some with slaves and some who didn't. You had some states that were very small and had very little population, and they liked the fact that they had equal representation in their legislative branch. You had some larger ones who wanted more. And then you had some manufacturing states and agricultural states. So there were all of these different interests in all of these different states. So to get all 13 of them to agree to make changes to this document, it just did not happen. So when they wrote the new Constitution, they wanted to make it a little bit easier. It's still very, very difficult to amend the Constitution. It's only been done 27 times, and the first 10 were done right after the ratification of the Constitution in order to make the Anti-Federalists happy and allow them to go ahead and sign on to this new document. So in Article 5 of the Constitution, it outlines the process of amending the Constitution. And we're going to learn later that we have a federal system. We have two different layers of government. We have the national government that's in Washington, D.C., and then each state has its own government. So they didn't want the states to be able to change the Constitution by itself or the national government. They both have to play a part in this process. So there are two ways to propose a constitutional amendment. I'm not going to make you learn how specifically those are, but what I do want you to know is that both of those take place at the national level. So Congress in Washington, D.C., it takes 2/3 vote in the House of Representatives, and then it takes 2/3 of the Senate to vote in favor of making a change to the Constitution. Once you get 2/3 of both the House and the Senate in favor of this, then what they do is they send the amendment to the states, and then the states individually in their own state legislature have to vote in order to formally approve or to ratify the amendment. So it takes 3/4 of the states. So what I really, really want you to get out of this is that it takes both the national and the state to do this. One or the other cannot change the Constitution by itself. So with the two ways to propose and the two ways to amend, there are combined 4 ways to make changes to the United States Constitution. So there have been a total of 33 amendments that have passed that first step, the proposal process, despite the fact that there have been thousands of amendments that have been introduced. Only 33 amendments have actually got the support, enough support in the House and the Senate to actually be sent to the states. And of those 33 amendments that have got enough support, only 27 of those have been ratified, and that's where we get the 27 amendments to the Constitution. The Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights are the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. So once again, the Founding Fathers, when they wrote the Constitution, some people were angry that it did not contain some basic guarantees: freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, and some safeties for people who have been accused of crimes. So they insisted that we put these in writing before they would agree to give their support to this new Constitution. So we have the first 10 amendments that come right away as soon as we ratify the Constitution. We become a new nation. There, like I said, were 12 that were actually sent to the states. So originally there were 12 amendments that the House and the Senate both voted on and got 2/3 vote support. Of those 12, only 10 were ratified originally. Only 10 of those were formally approved of, and they become the Bill of Rights. I just think it's interesting to note, you don't have to know what this amendment is right now, but I do think it's interesting, the 27th Amendment, which is the most recent that was ratified in 1992, was actually part of the original Bill of Rights that was sent to the states back in the late 1780s, actually 1791 I believe it was. So we have first 10 amendments. We have one amendment that was later proposed in the 27th Amendment. So of those 12, one has never been ratified. So that's what you need to know right now for amending. We'll add some to this later.